Lesson 09, volume. Volume represents the space occupied in a three-dimensional figure. So it actually involves three dimensions, just like I said, a length, width, height, so that when you are labeling volume, you're taking, again, something like feet times feet times feet. So three things. So you always label volume in units cubed. So just like yesterday when it was units squared for area, and the 2, if you want to use that as an exponent for representing squared or cubed, you put that number above the unit, not above the number. So you would have something like maybe inches cubed. Okay, so that's how you label volume. So just like I said yesterday, we're doing just a couple of volumes. These formulas you should kind of commit to memory because they've taken those formulas off your I-step and you have to know them. So the most common three-dimensional figure that we would ever work with would be a rectangular prism. We are sitting in a rectangular prism, and most rooms that you're in are, and they involve the bases. There are two bases that are the same shape, and in this case rectangles, and also all of the sides, like the walls for us, those are also all rectangles. Okay, so the top and bottom, I do want to mention, are your bases. Okay, so the base is the top and bottom, or the two identical sides. And then around the outside we have what's called lateral faces. Okay, so that's all of the ones around the outside. So there are actually 4 of those. And there are 2 bases. Now I will tell you this. With a rectangular prism, it's the only prism that is really hard to tell what the bases are. And people could argue, well, my gosh, the front and back of that could be the bases. And the left and right side of that could be the bases, because the 2 bases in a prism are the 2 identical sides. So that person that would argue that would be exactly right. It could be the front and back that could be your bases. Or it could be the left and right, because bases are identical sides. With a rectangular prism, you just so happen to have 3 sets of identical sides. Usually, though, because of how it's drawn, it's where it's sitting is what you call the bases, okay? Anyway, the volume of a rectangular prism would be length times width times height. So the length times width is that area of the base, that bottom rectangle. It's 2 dimensions. And then times how high it is. That gets the whole volume of the shape, how much space that would occupy. And volumes used for things like heating and air conditioning. Those people that do that need to know the volume of your home to know what size furnace or air conditioner you would need. People that work on that kind of stuff have to know about volume. You have to know the volume of, let's say, your swimming pool to know how many chemicals to put in it and things like that. So volume is used quite a bit in those areas. So I'm going to do a problem that kind of works backwards, just like I did yesterday, because honestly the straightforward problems where they give you the length, width, and height and they say find that volume, you're really multiplying 3 numbers together. So I'm not going to do one of those for you. If they give you the length, width, and height and tell you to find the volume, plug those numbers in, multiply the 3 numbers together, and label it that unit's cubed. So I'm going to do one that we would do that would work backwards. So the volume of a particular rectangular prism is 432 meters cubed. And the length of the prism is 12 meters. The width is 9 meters. And our job is to find the height. So just like what I would recommend, what I recommended yesterday, and what I recommend on all these problems, I want you guys to start out writing the formulas first. So you would write V equals L times W times H. I think that's just a good way to start. That way, those formulas are kind of committed to memory. If you have to do one on an I-step test, you're showing the grader, you know what you're doing. Write the formula first. Plug in the numbers that you have. So, for volume, I would put 432. For length, I would put 12. For width, I would put 9. And height, that's what we're solving for. So that one has to stay H. So we need to solve for H. What you would need to do first is go ahead and multiply 12 times 9, which is 108. And then the last step to solve for H, you would divide by 108. And in this case, that comes out to 4. Now, we are finding the height of the prism. So to label the height of the prism, what would I write, Jared? Meters. So it is 4 meters. It is not 4 meters cubed. It is not 4 meters squared. It is just the distance for the height. So one dimension, 4 meters. That happens when the volume is already given. You already have a cubic measure, so you're trying to just find one of the dimensions, 4 meters. Any questions on that? All right, I want to point out one more time for this formula, this is the area of the base, okay? That's the base area times the height. I just want to point that out because we're going to go on to a cylinder and I want you to kind of see how similar they are. That area of the base, you get that whole area covered, and then how tall it is, that gets you the volume. So when we look at a cylinder formula for volume, what is the base in a cylinder? What shape is that, Tora? Circle. So look at this formula. Volume is pi r squared h. Well, does pi r squared look familiar? Yeah, that's the area formula for a circle. So what that is the area of the base, that circle, times the height. So that's why cylinders and prisms are related in that respect, because they both have 2 bases and then you look at their height. So the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h, and since it is volume, you'll label it units cubed. All right, now we are going to do one of these, kind of a straightforward one. We're going to find the volume of this cylinder if the height is 7 meters. Okay, so we're going to give that a 7. And the radius is 2 meters, so that's a 2. I would definitely begin by writing the formula V equals pi r squared h and start plugging in what you know. For pi, we're definitely going to use 3.14. For r, you plug in the 2, and remember that's squared. And the h is 7. So we are following order of operations. Please make sure you do your exponent before your multiplication. So this is now 3.14 times 4 times 7. Go ahead and multiply all those 3 together. You would get 87.92. We are going to round always to the nearest tenth unless it says otherwise. So we would say that volume is 87.9 meters cubed. 87.9 meters cubed. Any questions?